Shit. I'm an addict. My name's Mike. Yeah, I love me too. To say the least, I'm very humbled by my sponsor talking about me. This is very difficult for me to talk about because he's made me emotional. So, and I'm not a man that's comfortable with that. So I'm going to try to get through this with the help of God. I got here October 7th of 2004. Last month I celebrated 9 years clean. And it's truly a miracle that I'm here and I'm clean, because David was not exaggerating. I am not a role model recovering addict. I'm just not. And, I want to say that, it's very important for me to get up here and do this, because one of the things about me is I don't do well with people. I never have. Everything in my life has been about places where I worked or places that what I did things, even using, I was always alone. And for me to stand up in front of this amount of people and be able to open my mouth is unbelievable to me. And I'm grateful for that. So I'm going to begin with where I came from, what it was like. And I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I am a diehard Buckeye fan. I live in Charleston, Tays Valley, West Virginia now, and I support the Mountaineers. So you can see how that works. I was actually 5 years old when my mother passed away, and I would love to tell you that my childhood was a wonderful childhood. However, that's not my story. When my mom died, my father was an addict. I call him an addict because that's the only thing I identify with. He was a drinking man, and he had 7 children and no wife because she had passed away. And the only thing that man could do at that time was put 7 little kids into an orphanage. And that's where my memories begin in my lifetime. I don't have a lot of memory of my mother, but I do remember the orphanage. And I can tell you, I don't know if I was 6. I know my dad tried to hold it together for about a year. But I think we were about 6 or 7 years old, and I was put into an orphanage off Main and Kelton in downtown Columbus. And if you know that area, you can understand what I'm talking about. It was just not a good area, and it was a Catholic orphanage, and I was just a fearful child. My whole life was turned upside down. I'm blind in one eye, I can't see out the other. So that's true too. So if I keep hitting the mic, it's because I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. But anyway, so I'm in this orphanage, and I'm just terrified of the situation. I'm just absolutely terrified because, my whole world's turned upside down. And that fear continued, and there was a lot of physical abuse in the orphanage. And I'm not going to go into the amount of abuse, but I can guarantee you that it left scars and I bled. And that was just the way it was. And it went on for a while until it was detected by an adult, and then it was stopped. I was moved from this orphanage to Franklin County Children's Home off Frank Road in Columbus. I think it's on the west side. And there I lived pretty much the rest of my life until I went in the military. And it was pretty much an unsupervised home. It was home for troubled kids or kids they couldn't find homes for. So you can imagine, this little 8-year-old kid's running around fearful, and kids are rough. Kids are rough today. Children are just cruel. And I remember being very fearful. And what happened was I just kept getting backed up in a corner, backed up. Well, something changed. I couldn't back up anymore, so I started coming forward. And this started to form what I was about. And this started to form the person I would become, okay? In this institution, we would always go steal alcohol. So I want to guess I was 8 or 9 years old, maybe 9, I would say as a safer bet. It was the first time I ever introduced any mind-altering chemical into my body. And I can assure you that most people that I talk to say when they taste alcohol, they hated it. I'm going to tell you right now, when I tasted alcohol, I loved it. I was hooked. from the moment. Now, I'm 9 years old, so it's not going to happen on a daily basis, and I understand that. It's just not going to happen. But I can guarantee you that every time it did happen, I was the first one there. And that's my memory of that. So anyway, I'm just going to breeze through this because I really want to talk about recovery and how I recovered here. And I stayed in children's home. My brothers and sisters were there. Most of my brothers and sisters went to aunts and uncles or friends of the family. And I got to stay in the children's home, which I wasn't complaining because I could run amok and nobody cared. And I was all right with that, and that's exactly what I did. So it kind of gives you the gist of how my life was at a young age. When I was 17 years old, I was still a ward of the state. I was an angry child. I just had a lot of anger in me. I didn't believe in God. The people that taught me about God were kicking my butt, and so, I blew God off. I became angry at that, and, instead of being pushed around, I started pushing people around. So I just took all this anger this little kid had built up, and I just put it to use, And when I turned 17, I had to find a job, or I had to stay a ward of the state. Well, naturally, they had a big old billboard sign back then that had a sign there with Uncle Sam and a finger saying, "We want you. I'm your guy." And so I did. I enlisted in the military, and I'm not going to talk a lot about that. I can assure you this. There are things there that I did that I'm not proud of, but I did them. And those are not things that this podium is here to share about. They are a part of who I am. They are a part of what I am. I have no regrets of that. The only thing I'll say about the military was it taught me how to use even harder. And in my particular profession, I can assure you that there were no drug tests. There were none. I did get to travel around the world. I got to see different places. There were some benefits to this. Most of those trips were not vacations, but they were trips, And I did get to meet interesting people. I really did, and we won't finish the rest of that. But so my military progressed until I lost my right eye. And when I lost my right eye, I couldn't play soldier anymore. Now I want you to picture an angry kid, because I'm still a kid on the inside. I haven't aged. Hell, I think I'm at 17 right now. I think I'm there. But I haven't, I can assure you that child inside just grew even angrier. And the unfortunate thing is the military unleashed this guy on society without any training. So my first job, and I'll never forget the first job, was the only thing I could find was a gas station attendant at a little gas station that had this protective window in the neighborhood I was in. And I remember this manager was trying to train me, on how to do stock the shelves or whatever. It was ridiculous to me, but okay. And this guy just kept heckling me through the window, and this went on for like an hour and a half, and I just finally turned around and I looked at the manager. I took that smock up. I said, "You're going to have to take this, buddy. I'm not meant for public service." And I'm going to say this, and I don't mean this boisterously. At the time, it was who I was. I went outside and I beat the living shit out of that guy. And I'm not proud of that. That's who I was, though. That's the anger that I had inside me. So I just kept feeding that. I went home and I went home to a woman who is no longer in my life, who passed away, who I probably never shared this with anyone. She was probably my soulmate. And I never realized that about her, ever. During this transition in my life, she stood beside me. As our life progressed, my life went down. I started using drugs harder and harder. She never left my side. And I'm going to go straight to 1996 because this is where it all changed for me. I was married to this woman at the time. And there's a lot of things I could fill in on my past for you. I've been in jails. I've been in institutions. And I have tried to kill myself. That's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about how I got here. And this is how my journey began. I was in 1996, I had left this wonderful woman because I was going to meetings, and I had like 30 days clean. And I met this other newcomer, and she was beautiful. She was hot. And that's all I paid attention to, you know? So me and her hooked up, and no, I need to back up. I went to this meeting, and I met this girl, and yes, she was beautiful, and she was hot. And, you know, everything in me knew what I was doing was wrong. I knew where this was going to go. I knew what was going on was wrong. So I called my brother, and some of you know me as Bo's brother Mike. That was my name for 2 years here. That's Bo's brother Mike. And some of you still call me Bo. You do. Anyway, I called my brother, and we had, actually, I'll tell you how this happened, and this was all happening at the same time, so it's kind of, there's no timeline to give you here, so it's a little confusing. My brother had been in Columbus a little while before that and ended up down here in West Virginia, and I got this letter in the mail, and I think I had 30 days clean, and in this letter was a 9th step amends to me. And I only knew a little bit about recovery, you know, like keep coming back. That's what I knew. And I had a $100 check in a letter that somebody said they loved me. So we connected. Now I'm a married man with 30 days clean, and I'm invited down to see my brother to come to Ripley, West Virginia. So I came, me, and that beautiful woman. That was my first convention. This is my 19th convention. The reason I'm sharing this is because this is what I would suggest to you not to do. You'll do what you want, but I would suggest not to do this. So anyway, I'm just going to cut through the gist of it. You know, we hooked up. I divorced my wife. I married her, inherited 3 children, and a relapse. I stayed abstinence, and I call it abstinence simply because I wasn't working a program. Okay? I stayed abstinence for 3 years. Okay? And my whole world turned upside down. I remember the morning that she woke up, she had alcohol in her breath, and I said, what the hell is going on here? My heart dropped. My whole world, I just went in fear. For the next 3 months, I didn't tell anyone what was going on. I couldn't talk about it. I was ashamed. I wouldn't tell my sponsor. I wouldn't tell anyone in the program. So I was living this lie. Long story short, she asked me to go get her some beer. So I did. I hadn't used yet. There was Bud Light on the right and Budweiser on the left. She drank Bud Light. I started drinking Budweiser. Now with me, you put anything in my body and I go straight to where I used to be. And so you can imagine it wasn't a long period of time before I was right back where I needed to be. Right back on the streets. And that's what happened. The last memory I have of my ex-wife is her hanging out of a window in suburbia, Columbus. And this is a rather nice home. Screaming, "Get away from him. He's a junkie. Get away from him. He's a junkie." Well, you can imagine. Now I'm going to talk about a guy that my next adventure in recovery. I met this guy I actually went to his recovery house, and I love Ivan. And I have Ivan's permission to mention his name. And the reason I want to mention Ivan is because Ivan saw me in active addiction. And you know, I'm a hard user. It's just the way it is. When I say my addiction progressed, you know, I went from a little sip of wine to a needle in my arm. And that progression just kept getting worse. So I get up to Ivan's, and I'm trying to stay clean. I think I've got 9 months clean. And, Ivan's telling me, you need to quit smoking. You need to do this. And I'm looking at him like, you are crazy. I'm trying to quit drugs, and you want me to quit smoking. And he's doing this out of love, and I'm just losing my mind because I can't hear the message. I just can't hear it because I'm not ready. I didn't know I wasn't ready. I really thought I wanted to quit. Me and a guy named Keith, and I'll speak about Keith because I love Keith. I don't know how he's doing today, but him and I decided to take a trip down to Dayton. And I got loaded. It was from that point on that 5 years in active addiction. And I mean hard active addiction. And this is where I'm just going to go straight. And I know this is choppy for you, but I don't want to live here in my discussion. Because I was living to use and using to live. I was doing what our literature talks about. I had a 4-bedroom apartment that was empty. The doors were screwed shut. People were looking for me. And I'm not talking about people that want to talk to you. I'm talking about people that want to end your fucking life. These doors are screwed shut. I'm sitting on some milk crates. Now this story I'm talking about is 5 years after Ivan was in my life, when I first met Ivan. And this is in the month of July. I am so desperate that I just decide I'm going to draw some bath water. And I'm just going to draw this bath water. I'm going to lay the razor blades out. I'm going to get loaded. Then I'm just going to cut my wrist and lay down and die, and nobody's going to care about it. My phone rings. And on the other end of that phone, Ivan goes, Mike, you need to get out of Sydney, Ohio, or you're going to die. Now, you may believe in coincidences. I don't. I don't believe in coincidences. To give you the gist of the story, I was looking for anything and everything to get back here to Narcotics Anonymous. I was using to live and living to use, and I could not get back here. That phone call saved my life. How did it save my life? It gave me the courage to call my brother. And the first thing out of his freaking mouth is, go to a meeting. And I'm like, I can't go to a meeting. Well, you need to get somewhere. Well, I'll tell you about those somewheres. Within a 100-mile radius of Sydney, Ohio, I've been barred from every recovery facility in the area. I had been there so many times, and this is not that I had been there so many times. We can't help you, Mike. I remember Dr. Payne, he was a psychiatrist. He came in, he said, Mike, you need a 12-step program. That's all I can do for you, Mike. You need a 12-step program. That's what he said. So I'm hopeless. I'm like, man, screw this. What am I going to do? And I called a therapist, one therapist that I knew, and she said the only place I can get to. I told her, I said, if you don't get me somewhere, I'm going to die. So I got somewhere. I got to Dayton State Mental Institution. And I can assure you that Elvis lives. The girl that was doing the Thorazine shuffle, she led me right to Elvis, sitting out the window, singing, knew every tune. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that mental institution. I'd gotten in there, and I don't know if you've ever been in one, but in this particular one, they have a whole herd of white coat people. And they put you in this room with this herd of white coat people, and they want you to talk to them. I wasn't going to talk. So for probably 3 days, they stared at me, and I stared at them. And it was unbelievable because I had come to the conclusion that that was the only place that I would be able to live and not use. And so I literally was not going to ever talk again. And Fortunately enough for me, they were very, very, they just wouldn't give up. Let me just put it that way. I just kept having to go back in that room. And so I finally was staring there. His doctor just says, tell us what we can do. And I said, I need to get the hell out of here. I said, I'm an addict. I need to get clean. I need to get to Charleston, West Virginia. And I'm going to tell you why I said that. Because in 1996, even with 30 days clean, the impact of one addict that can have on another addict is unbelievable. If you live this program and you walk this program, you impact someone that needs impacted. That man that introduced me was that man. I heard his lead. I never forgot his lead. I got out of this mental institution and got loaded immediately. I did. I didn't want to use. I just got loaded. It's all I knew how to do. But I got in a truck, loaded, very loaded. And I drove, with the grace of God, from Dayton, Ohio to Charleston, West Virginia. And I got here alive and without harming anyone else. So, now comes the next part of the story. I came here looking for my brother, and I went to my brother's ex-wife's home, which I was pretty shocked it was ex-wife at the time. I didn't know. I'd been gone for so long. So I show up and I knock on the door, and my sponsor's wife comes to the door. Or no, Bo's ex-wife comes to the door, and she just looks at me and puts her head down. And I go, I'm looking for Bo. She goes, okay. And I look in and I see Kathy, my sponsor's wife, and I see a step-working guy. And I'm loaded. Well, my brother got called. My brother came over to get me. And his first words out of his mouth is, there'll be no using here. Then I put my head down. And I said, okay. That night was October 6th of 2004. I never used again. Never. And that's a true miracle. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about how that happened. I went to the meeting where I met David. It was Saturday night. I don't know if it's Saturday night. I'm pretty sure it was Saturday night. No weekends off group. And I sat down in a chair. And I had tears in my eyes. And, because I just was lost. And I joined that home group. And I asked David to sponsor me. So the two things I did immediately was I got a home group and I got a sponsor. And I knew how to do that thing. But I don't want to lie to you. For the first 2 years of my recovery, I was the most angriest son of a bitch you ever wanted to meet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. When I got here in October, I came to my second convention. And, oh my God, the network I got is so wonderful for putting up with me. I'm not kidding. They did. I was just unapproachable. I mean, it was unbelievable the way I just permeated anger. And I brought my guitar, and I was sitting over by a tree over here. And people were going, come on out and eat with us. And I'd just look at them and say, go away, leave me the fuck alone. No, that's exactly how I talk to them. And these are people that are trying to help me that love me. And that's how I'm not kidding you, that's how I reacted. Well, then this wonderful person out of nowhere just starts strolling across the grass. She's got red hair. She just comes up. And she goes, hi, I'm Lisa. Can I play your guitar? Where are you at, Lisa? That right there. What I'm talking about is the impact that an addict can have on another impact. I have a granite wall built around me that I've been tearing down for 9 years. That little girl right there broke that wall for a minute, not long enough to play guitar, and I could let her in for that. After she left, I pushed everybody else away. But I never forgot her. and I never forgot how kind she was to me. That's what this place does here. Or at least that's my experience in the beginning. Now, I used to sit in meetings, and I preached this for the first 2 years of my recovery. I don't give a shit if I'm mad. I'm not using. I'm not using no matter what. I'm not going to use. I'm not going to use. I do not recommend that to anybody here. I recommend you get a sponsor, start working the steps. You can be a happy person, I can tell you that. And that's what I could identify with. Why are all these people walking past me, smiling and happy? And my sponsor would say, if you do what we do, you get what we get. In one ear and stop. Couldn't crack the granite. And that's just it. That's the deal. The deal was, for 2 years, I couldn't do anything. And I'll tell you why. I could go to meetings. I was good about going to meetings. I had a sponsor. I had a home group. I was there. Those things I could handle. Okay? And I wasn't going to use. I guarantee you, no matter what, that was my motto. I wasn't going to use. Okay? And I'm grateful for those little bit of tools that they gave me. Because that could have turned out a lot worse than it actually did. A lot worse. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't know when this happens for people, but when it happened for me, I don't know. I think my sponsor was meant to be my sponsor because I don't ever think I'm different from any addict in here. I'm exactly the same as you. I don't think I'm better or worse. I think that we all suffer from the same disease. And there isn't any cure. I believe that with all my heart. And inside my heart is a passion for this program that's unparalleled. Getting it from my heart out of my mouth in a way that it will help you is virtually impossible for me. I don't know how to frickin' do that without screaming at you. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. And it took me a long time to understand that. And it took me to begin to work steps. And I'm going to tell you, I have a sponsor that works steps. I have a sponsor that lives steps. Okay? I worked my steps with my sponsor. And I also have worked steps with a group of men since I've been here. And I can tell you that I have had, I don't want to say I have the best network in the world, but I have the best network in the world for me. For me, because everybody that has a network has the best network, in my opinion. You know? When I got here, I had to get uncomfortable. For 2 years, I stayed uncomfortable due to my own stubbornness. But when I started to begin to work steps, I had to get uncomfortable. I had to hang out with people that I had nothing in common with. I didn't want to be around people. Actually, I didn't even like people when I got here. I really didn't. And I tell my sponsees that today. See, because that's what recovery is about. Recovery is about getting up in front of 500 people and talking when you don't want to do that. I only found out 2 weeks ago, and for 2 weeks I've been telling myself I have no freaking message to give these people. These people have more than I'll ever have. Because that's how I feel. But I got to get up here and tell you what I did. That's what I've got to do today. And trust me, I wanted to go out the back door. I tried to pay people to help me get out the back door. I do love the people that I'm with. Anyway, I'm not the type of guy that's going to go through the 12 steps. I can tell you that there are 12 steps. There's 1 through 12, and they're numbered for a reason. And I'm going to talk a little bit about them because I think it's important to share how difficult it is to get clean. You know, I heard Quentin, I don't know if he's in here, but if he is, I heard him share in a meditation meeting, and I felt he brought me back to what it was like for me. And I don't ever want to forget what it was like. I refuse to forget what it was like. I don't ever want to forget that. You know, when I was introduced to the first step, I had to get honest. You know, we talk about honesty, but I talked a little different about that honesty. See, because I lied to myself for so fucking long, I was the guy that had to get honest with. You don't know me from Adam. So if I tell you I got brown hair and my head shaved, you don't know that I've got brown hair. You're just going on what I say. So when I look in the mirror and I realized for the first time that I had to be honest with myself, that no matter how I slice it and dice it, no matter how I try to manipulate it and control it, the end result was always the same for me. The end result. I got clean when I was 46 years old. My first drug was when I was 8. You do the math. Now, I'm not saying I was a hardcore user at 8 years old, but I can guarantee you from the moment it hit my body till I turned 46, it progressed like a son of a bitch. It did. And I've been in and out of the rooms for all the wrong reasons. Never here to get clean. And you know, people talk about bottoms. I've had bottoms. Then I had bottoms with trap doors. And if you think they're not out there, they are. I'll guarantee it. I hope you don't go and find out. Because I hear people share that they've never relapsed, and I love that. Because that's not a requirement here. It's just part of what I had to go through. And I'm a firm believer in this. Whatever you have to do to get here is what you have to do to get here. I can't do that for you. You know? So what I did was got honest with myself. I looked in the mirror and I said, what the hell do you want? How many times do you got to do this before you realize that this is always going to be where you end up? Now, did I surrender at that moment? I don't know the day I surrendered. Everybody says it differently. I just know that today, just for today, I'm not going to use. I'm just not going to use. Every morning I wake up, I try to remember that I'm an addict. I try to be honest, to get honest with myself. That again today, I need to realize that I'm an addict and I can't use. The second step was really weird for people. I didn't have a hard time with the second step. You know, when you blow shit up for a living all over the place, you get it right with God quick. You really do. You know, I didn't expect to be alive past 35. I'm not telling you how old I am. I'm 55. So I'm 20 years to the good. That's the way I see it. And everything that I tried to do failed. And I believe that there was a power greater than myself. You know, and I know people, I watch people. That's how I learned about the second step. I learned about hope through that. Because see, those 2 years that I was sitting there and people were going through the second step, I got to see the show. I got to see it working in people's lives. And then I got a resentment over it. Because they were getting it and I wasn't. But I got to see it. I got to see that working in their lives. And I'm going to tell you something. It's a powerful thing when you watch. When you're in Narcotics Anonymous long enough and you get to see it working in someone's life, that's some powerful stuff. That's what this is about. It really is. You know, the third step, I came to believe, a lot of people I hear stress with that, that it's a work, it's like me, it's a work in progress, That's what it's about. I think the meat and potatoes of the steps are where I needed to get. I came from an area where 1, 2, and 3 and out was the norm, You didn't get a lot of recovery up where I was at. The ones that did recover were trying to save everybody's life, and it just wasn't working. So when I got here, I saw people working the steps, talking about doing them. I don't know about fear and the fourth step. If you're scared of the fourth step, get up here and speak. You'll be over that in a minute. You'll get over that in a minute. I don't know how. I understand the fear of it. I do. I understand. Because I'll tell you right now, I hated me for a long time. When I looked in the mirror, I couldn't stand myself. I can look at me today. I don't know how that happened. I don't know how that happened. Because I can assure you there was a time when I looked in the mirror, I wanted to kill the son of a bitch in the mirror. I don't want that today. I don't. I don't want that guy dead. That guy needs to live. He's got something to give somebody. I don't know. I did my fifth step. God, I love my sponsor. My sponsor put up with so much shit for me. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm telling you right now, to say that somebody took their time and put forth the effort to help another addict, my sponsor did that. He really did. 6 and 7 step, I worked walking laps around here with my sponsor. We were talking about that. I have so much recovery memories here, it's unbelievable. People recover right here. I see it all the time. I got to work a 2nd step with a sponsee this morning. Imagine that. The guy that said, fuck you, get away from me, is working the 2nd step with an addict 9 years later. That's a miracle. That's a miracle. You know, I don't like the F word, but unfortunately it's part of my character defects, and I try not to spit it out there. And I'm actually doing pretty good because I think I've only hit like 5 or 6 times. My goal was 0, so you can tell. And it really was. It was 0. I continue to work steps with a sponsor, and I work as steps with a group of men. And you know, I want to share a little bit about what's going on with me today and why it's so important. I have just gotten in contact with what we call emotions. Yeah. And unfortunately, I have tears coming out of my eyes all the time. And this guy right here, I'm telling you right now, it ain't normal. He don't like it. My normal thing would be when I hug my sponsor and tears are coming out of my eyes just to leave because you cannot see me cry. When you cry, I am so grateful. I have all this love and feeling for it. But when I do it, it's not okay. Now, I know that's messed up. But that's just the way it is. And that's how I felt. And my biggest fear about getting up here would be that I would cry in front of you, that I couldn't hold my emotions. And I want to share a little bit about sponsorship and why sponsorship is important. I sat with I got to tell the story about Mark. I love Mark. He's a sponsee of mine. We were eating dinner or breakfast, or we went to the morning meditation meeting and heading over to breakfast. And he tells me, he knows I'm nervous. He knows I didn't want to do this. Every nerve in my body was screaming no. And he goes, you know what, Mike? He goes, the time changes. They get to set the clocks back another hour. And I just looked at him and I said, you got to be freaking kidding me. I got to think about this for another hour? And what I want to share about that is Mark has been by my side all weekend. He knew how uncomfortable I was. We have this thing that we call sponsor or sponsee relationship. Sometimes I wonder who the sponsor is. And if you get that feeling too, because I'll tell you right now, when I'm trying to guide someone through the steps and they're guiding me too, that's a powerful thing. You know, and I think sometimes we don't talk about that enough, how that relationship so much works, how they help me out as much as I ever help them out. And you know, he's been nothing but a support network. And I love him and I thank him for that. He's got his head down because he's embarrassed. But, you know, it's those kinds of moments that I treasure. You know, and I learned that here. I learned so much from Narcotics Anonymous that I never thought would be possible for me to learn. You know, I've lost some friends here over the years. I've seen people die from this, and there's where I'm going to get up on the pulpit, because this is where my passion comes from. People don't have to die from this disease. That's a fucking lie. They don't have to do that. Everybody here has a chance or a choice. You know, and I sometimes struggle with how do you get a message out to people that need that. And it took me a long time to understand that, you know what, there are a lot of people that walk this planet that are never going to get this message. And that I'm powerless over that just as I am a lot of other things. You know? But I wouldn't be doing it justice if I didn't say that that lie's dead. And that you don't have to use. And that you can get clean. You know? Sometimes I think that, and what I've learned, and this is where I'm at in my recovery, I've begun to be not completely honest with people. I don't know that I'll ever be a person that can be completely honest. I do as much as humanly possible for me today. But I had a guy ask me to sponsor him. And, you know, I noticed that at times I tend to not want to be honest with guys. You know, and I know that guys that come in my age are a little older, and I thought about it when I told him. I said, you know what, I'd be glad to sponsor you, but I said, I want to tell you right up front that I'm not going to lie to you and I'm not going to coddle you. You know? And I talked to some people about that, and I thought, am I wrong in saying that? You know, because when I first got introduced here, when I didn't want this program, I had a guy tell me, I'll never forget, Big Earl. He looked at me and he goes, you don't want to be clean. Shut up, sit the fuck down. You're going back out and use anyway. And he was right. 30 days later, I was out and using. And, you know, I was talking to some acts about that. That's pretty harsh. And I'm going, well, you know what? They were struggling back then. That's, you know, you're talking the 80s and 90s. People were still trying to figure it out, you know? And he was as honest as he could be. Some people call it brutally honest. That's not what I want. I don't want to be brutally honest. But I also don't want to, you know, if you're in my network and you see me doing something that's out of the ordinary, I hope you call me on my shit. I do. Because I guarantee you, if you're in my network and I think you're walking sideways, I'm damn sure going to say something to you about walking sideways. You might want to check that. Sideways ain't getting it. I'm going to talk another thing. I see a face out there that I want to talk about. I got a lesson from this guy. He's one of my best friends. He actually married my ex-girlfriend. You ought to give him congratulations. That's how this program works. Donnie, and I'm going to mention his name because I love him and he's not going to mind. He came up and he goes, Mike, will you sponsor me? I said, sure. Don't ever sponsor your friend. I'm sorry. I will never sponsor my friend. It didn't work for me. And the reason I say that is because, you know, I wanted to beat the steps into Donnie. I didn't want him to find them. I wanted to beat him into him. And then he wanted to beat my ass, and I couldn't figure that out. I was like, what how's that work? I really just wanted to congratulate them because I love them both. They're both a very part of my support network. And, you know, I don't know. That's how it works for me today. I feel blessed today. I was scared to death to come out here and talk to you. And I don't know why. Most of your faces I've seen for a while. Most of you I've seen for a while. I may not know your name. I probably have given a lot of you a hug. But you know what? You're the reason I'm clean today. All of you. You know, that's what this is about. You know, I couldn't have ever done this alone. Thank God I never tried to do it alone. You know, when I found it, you know, people were kind enough to, I can't even go into tell you how people handled me. You know, I have a network now that's unbelievable. You know, they spent the day with me, had breakfast with me, supported me, you know, ribbed me, told me they were going to throw shit at me while I was up here. And it was all done because they knew I didn't want to get up here and do this. And I'm going to tell you, that's the honest God's truth. I'm a guy that doesn't want to come out of the basement. And there's a story about that. When I got here, my brother, and when I talk about my brother, I love my brother, and I'm going to take time to talk about him. And I'm going to breathe. He saved my life. He really did. It's very difficult to do this. When I came down here, and I just found this out, he was struggling in his own right. And he put his addiction aside to save my life. And my sponsor told me this a couple days ago. I kind of thought something was going on with him on Christmas Day, that Christmas. And that guy I love so much that I never tell him that. We never grew up together. We never grew up together. So we're growing up together now. And it's a miserable fucking situation at times. And it's not about him. It's not about him. It's about me. And that's the thing about it, is he took his life and put it on hold. to put a facade on for me to help save my fucking life. Now, if that isn't a miracle, you tell me what is. That's what I want to do today, is do that for someone else. And I love him. And it's difficult because we're like two old guys living together. I ain't down with that. You know what I mean? Talked about buying a house, and I said we're not going to be the older sisters living together, baby. I said you can rent a room, but yes, we're not doing that. He's taught me. I want to say this because living with an addict who struggles. Let me back up because I need to say this and finish it. When I got down here, my brother had clean time. I have 2 years more clean than him. I had to take a mental hygiene out on my brother to save his life because he didn't want to live. And I'm not saying that to embarrass him. I'm saying that because that's what my journey was. He was lying on the bed, and they were telling me that he was going to die, and he was trying to get off the bed to go out and die. And I wasn't going to let that happen. I wasn't going to let the guy that saved my fucking life go out and die because I wasn't going to have the courage enough to do that. And I'm grateful to this day that I did that because when he got out of the hospital, he didn't use since that day. And he's clean today. I just want to thank the area or the region for asking me to speak. I'm not this speaker guy. I'm just not the speaker guy. I'm just an addict trying to recover, and I got a story. And I could go on with a lot more of my story, but you know what? It's good. You know? I'm here, I'm recovering, and I'm in Ripley, West Virginia with a bunch of family. And I do want to say this, and this is what I wanted to close with. I went in an orphanage, okay, and I was left alone. I want you to see my family now. I love you.